You know what I actually, you know what happened to me right before we went live, like 20 minutes before?
Mhm.
Sunday morning, I dropped a cup of coffee and the mug shattered.
Oh, man.
Is that a bad way to start a Sunday or what?
That's usually a pretty bad omen. Or, I don't know, like in
No.
Greece, they break plates, right? So maybe it's a good omen.
Yeah, I don't think it's like necessarily an omen. It's just like a rough way to start a Sunday. But knowing that you were coming on the podcast and we're doing this today actually brought me back to like a happy place.
Yeah, I was going to say, anytime we're doing a podcast on a Sunday morning is a good way to start a Sunday.
Yep. Cool, man. Yeah, no. What we're gonna do, today, obviously, it's rookie season. We're gonna be talking about dynasty sleeper rookies. So basically, it's still early in the process. The combine hasn't even actually got underway yet. So, but I know that you've been studying the rookies, doing all your work. So I like that. I want to get a few of, later in the show, a few of the guys that you like that might go on late day 2, day 3, even later. Because I have tasked you, Shane, with finding me the next Elijah Mitchell, so I could draft him in my dynasty leagues this year. But I'm just
that is some heavy responsibility. But you know what, Al? I'm going to try it. We're gonna go through some of these players. Look, the reality in the class this year is that it is very top heavy, right? We've talked about this already many times, whether it's on your show on Sirius or just chatting, right? It's very top heavy. And then there's a whole bunch of dart throws. And every one of these guys has a few warts as to why they're not being drafted, in the top 1 or 2 rounds of the NFL draft. But hey, listen, that's why we're here, right? We're here to find the diamonds in the rough. And maybe it's a smaller school guy. Maybe it's a guy who transfers, who didn't really get an opportunity until his junior or senior season. And that's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah, is there like with Elijah Mitchell specifically, and the reason I keep going back to him is because he was a 6th-round running back. He was the third running back on his own depth chart, and then he emerges as an every week fantasy starter when he was healthy. And when he was healthy, he produced like a top 12 running back. So, looking back, knowing what we know now, is there something about Elijah Mitchell that basically the general market missed? I know a couple guys were on him, but is there something that What was it that we missed that we should look for in running backs moving forward?
Man, see, that's such a tough nut to crack. And I think really what it comes down to is there's this type, right? Like in the NFL, if you're not 205 to 220 pounds, if you're not between 5'9" to 6'1", 6'2" sort of thing, you're almost an afterthought, right? Or you're thought of as just scat back. You're like a Naheem Hines. You're destined to be the third guy or the second guy in a committee, right? And that's what it comes down to. Whereas, if these NFL coaches start looking at and taking a step back and looking at these smaller-ish, they're still around 200 pounds, but these smaller-ish running backs that are elusive, that are quick, that look good, there's that eye test. And if they pass the eye test, it's like, okay, maybe we should give this guy an opportunity. And so, Elijah Mitchell, he's not a big dude, right? He's 201 pounds. He's only 5'10". He was a little bit older, right? He was an older rookie. He was 22. He's 23 and a half now. So he would have been, 22 going through this process.
Can I stop you there for a second? Can I stop you there? Like the age thing with running backs, that's what that's the lesson I've learned. And don't lose your train of thought here. I interrupted you because this is an important thing. I don't think it really matters if they're an older running back at rookie. If they're an older rookie at running back, because I mean, we're only expecting 3 good seasons out of our running backs anyway, right? I mean, at best, we're happy if we get 3 seasons.
And if you can get honestly legit, like unless you're going for one of these like top end guys, if you can get 2 seasons out of these running backs, you're probably going to be happy, right? I'm serious. Like how many guys are just like the 1 year, one hit wonders, and then they just go off into obscurity? Like the James Conner model, where he goes and scores what was like 19 touchdowns last year. Like that doesn't happen very often, right? Where they've got an opportunity, they break out because of an injury typically, right? And then the next season they just do absolutely squat, fall flat on their face, and then go to another team and score 19 touchdowns. Like that just doesn't happen. So if you're going to get 1 or 2 years out of these guys, now the thing is, and we were just my co-host Brandon on the Flex Network, we did our first rookie mock yesterday. Well, it was supposed to be 2 rounds. Of course, we only got through 1 round, right? Because we like to talk about rookies. And the general consensus is that, unless you're one of these high drafted, high pedigree running backs, that you're going to be taking probably top 5, top 6, like those are the guys that you expect. Like your expectation is I get 3 to 4 years of production and relatively high level production with this player, right? The second in these dynasty drafts, you're drafting guys in like the 2nd or 3rd round. Like that's where it's like, if I get one, maybe two good seasons out of these guys, to me, that's a win. That's a win, right? So, it's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about some of these guys a little bit later. And look, the thing is that depending where these guys go, they're going to have to, their opportunity to get on the field might be from an injury, right? Of the top guy. And then there's an opportunity like when Miles Sanders went down last year and Kenny Gainwell was, quote, the guy, he didn't take advantage of it. And lo and behold, Jordan Howard was scoring touchdowns, right? So sometimes you like these prospects, you do everything right. You look at like an Elijah Mitchell, say, listen, these are the things that I like about this guy, but there needs to be an injury or their higher drafted running back needs to fall flat in his face. And that's what happened with Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, one of the lessons I've learned in these Dynasty rookie drafts is, and again, there's going to be exceptions to the rule, but when I get into the third round of these rookie drafts, I don't really want to take wide receivers anymore. I mean, because I just want to load up on running backs, even if the depth chart is not cleared out for them yet. The Elijah Mitchells, the Khalil Herbert types, even Jamar Jefferson last year and Kylan Hill, because even if they're the third running back on their own depth chart, I mean, we see that during the season that gets cleared out pretty quickly because we don't care if we have like it's very rare. And that's why, we jokingly talked about Elijah Mitchell. It's very rare you get a full season starter. Where you're looking for are projectable running back starts in 2 week windows. So there's an injury to the starter. David Montgomery goes down. At this point, that you could start Khalil Herbert and expect a pretty reasonable, top 15 running back game out of him. So I think my strategy moving forward in these rookie drafts is going to be identifying these running backs that maybe taken around 4, round 5, round 6 that are, the running back 3, they're going to make the roster on their team. And those are the guys I'm looking to draft.
The guys you want to take shots on, like Kenny Nwangwu from last year, for example, right? The reason I took a shot on him,
the rookie running back on the Minnesota Vikings.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah,
Kenny
I want to make sure we're
rookie running back, or now I guess sophomore running back, right? He's going into his second year. He didn't do much last year, and obviously there's Dalvin Cook, there's Alexander Madison, right? These are guys that are ahead of them on the depth chart. But why are we taking shots at these guys? Because you look at them and they're hyper athletic. They're 90th percentile athletes, and those are the types of players you want to take a shot on. And so the thing is that, do you remember when Jerick McKinnon went to San Francisco? Couple of years ago, he got paid. He was like one of the top paid running backs. Everybody's like, what the hell are you guys doing? Because he came off that great season in Minnesota, and he got hurt. So we didn't really have an opportunity to see what the hell they were doing. But then, even Kansas City this year, when they were playing him just a little bit, he looked athletic when he touched the ball. So those are the types of players you want to go for. And guess what? Shanahan has a type. He's got a type of running back. And so you look at Elijah Mitchell, okay, Al, and who is his best comparable player? It's Jerick McKinnon, right? So I get the feeling like smart coaches like Kyle Shanahan, look, and I guess I don't want to do this coach worshiping guys, but he gets players on his team. He gets players that know how to play football on his team. And then he's not afraid to give them the opportunity, right? If they shine in camp, he saw him and he saw like Trey Sermon, and Trey Sermon did absolute squat. So it's like, all right, let's give Elijah Mitchell the opportunity to play because he looks good in practice. He's hyper athletic and he's a guy that we're going to take a shot on. So that's why, if you're not drafting one of these top 2, 3 NFL, so call it day 1, day 2, and realistically, in the NFL in 2022, round 2 is a new round 1, right? Like the vast majority of these elite running backs are going to be drafted in round 2 because NFL teams are getting smarter because the running back position is somewhat interchangeable, right? You want to go for these high athletic guys. And that's kind of what I feel like. I feel like Shanahan sometimes plays like the fantasy game, right? He's like, all right, who would I want on my fantasy team? Well, these are the guys that I want on my real NFL team, right? Like, don't go out and draft plotters. Let's draft athletic guys that can score touchdowns, that can look good. And hey, if they can stay healthy, they might actually make a contribution to the team. So the one thing I will caution you on is that Elijah Mitchell, he may be a sell high if you can sell him. So I actually sold him for a decent payout. It's always a little bit painful selling a player of that stature, especially on a team like San Francisco that's going to likely produce. But you just look at his range of outcomes next year. He wasn't highly drafted. Trey Lance is presumably going to be the starter next year. So is he going to take away running opportunities? We know Deebo Samuel loves to play running back. So I don't know if is that sustainable long term? I don't know, but I'm looking at next year. And so range of outcomes, Elijah Mitchell is somebody that is reliable. But you've been doing these underdog drafts, Alec. Where's Elijah Mitchell going? In the 4th, 5th, right? Like He's definitively in that dead zone.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I don't mind taking a shot on him. You know, the running back pool dries up quick. By the way, RotoWire Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast is brought to you by WynnBET. Thanks to WynnBET for sponsoring us all season long. WynnBET is the exclusive sponsor of RotoWire's Fantasy Podcast. WynnBET brings you the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, and all the live betting you like. They also have a digital casino with an amazing interface. WynnBET is currently available in 9 states and rapidly expanding. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. Register at WynnBET today, make a qualifying deposit and wager, and receive $200 in free bets. Promotion may vary by state. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. That's WynnBET, the exclusive partner of RotoWire Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Alan Seslowsky. I'm here with Shane Seeley, my old friend from the Flex Network, and we're going to be talking about some rookies that you should be drafting in the later rounds of your rookie draft, guys that, obviously it's going to change when they test a little bit, and it's going to vary upon landing spot. Running back being the most landing spot dependent position probably of any of them. I mean, obviously you could argue quarterback might be as well, but that's a little bit more obvious. We're looking for different things with quarterbacks. Speaking of the combine and testing, and
yes.
Did you hear? I'm trying to think where I heard this, but are there going to be a lot of key players refusing to run the 40 this year?
It would be pure speculation for me to say that. I haven't read anything that these players are going to do that. But here's the thing: last year was unique, right? Because there was no combine. And
was that last year, or was that the year before?
That was last year, wasn't it?
Well, I don't remember. They all blend together for me at this point.
Yeah, no, that was pretty. It was last year, right?
It was last year. Okay.
Chase,
right.
None of these guys had a combine, right? Yeah. So, these players don't have the combine, and so they found that Jamar Chase literally didn't play last year. He was the first drafted wide receiver off the board, and then he lit the NFL on fire, right? And they made it all the way to the Super Bowl because of a player like that. More and more we're starting to see these players opt out of their bowl games. More and more we're seeing players like Johan Dotson, for example, getting the invite to the Senior Bowl and then opting out of the Senior Bowl because, hey, he's probably going to get higher round draft capital. So,
what school does Dotson go? Is he out of?
Johan Dotson. I knew you were going to ask me that question. Let me just double check here. Johan Dotson is coming out of Sorry, Al.
Yeah, no problem. Obviously,
he's out of Penn State. Yeah, okay. Out of Penn State.
And then maybe the 40 is just less important than we thought it was. We don't really again, it's important, but maybe for the top prospects, do you really care what Treylon Burks is going to run his 40 times? Yeah, I mean,
it matters. No, the thing is, it does matter though, Al, right? Because it depends on the type of wide receiver, right? So a Treylon Burks.
But I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying, does it matter less than we thought it does?
Explosiveness matters in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that you talk about the eye test, right? When you're comparing it to college level athletes, it's sometimes harder. That's why you got to sometimes caution these guys who only look at tape when they're evaluating a prospect versus looking at the tape as well as the actual metrics. That's important because your eyes can be deceiving, especially if you're looking at a smaller school player where you need to, things like the 40. The reason that they do these different tests, they do the shuttle, because these are metrics that translate into the NFL. If you're quick, that matters in the NFL, right? So
yeah, I think I'm not communicating the question right, because I'm not saying that the metrics and the tests don't matter. I'm saying specifically the 40-yard dash. Why is it a 40-yard dash? Some guys
I see what you're saying.
How many 40-yard plays are there really? Most plays, I mean, if a good player, what does he have, 6 40-yard plays a season? It's why isn't the 20-yard dash the most important thing? That's what I'm saying. What is this? Why is the number 40 the gold standard? And I think players, especially some players that are projected to go in the first couple rounds, are like, hey, why am I going to hurt my draft stock by running a 40 when I'm already locked in? I mean, Burks, for example, he's going to be the first or second wide receiver off the board. He's going to be a first-round pick. Can he only hurt himself by doing that? Can't teams, if they put less emphasis on the 40-yard dash, avoid, falling in love with the metrics? Henry Ruggs blew the combine away, right? And he pushed himself all the way up into the first wide receiver off the board. Off the field stuff aside, that didn't look like it was a good choice. I mean,
No.
so that's what I'm saying is that I think you're going to see more and more players. We saw, like you mentioned, we saw people opting out of bowl games. Now I think you're going to see people opting out of what's probably the most, it's the ice skating of the Olympics, right? It's the 40-yard dash is the key event that everyone looks to. It's the one I watch.
Yeah. Well, it's the exciting one, right? I mean, it's in Summer Olympics, it's the 100-meter runs. Like those are the ones that are exciting. I don't know, they got like the the athletes that everybody knows about that you don't just talk about every 4 years. It's the sexy one because I don't know. I mean, speed still matters, and the thing is that especially at the Indy Combine, it's everybody's in the same level. It's the same conditions, and that's why they always go back to the exact same spot, the exact same field. There's consistency, right?
There's like a controlled environment, right? You can
it's a controlled environment. I think that's important. But
keep an eye on that.
That's a really good question because, like, how do the NFL wide receivers win in the league this year? Like in 2021, 2022, they do it by separation. There are some deep, like the speedy guys, but really like Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's a unique beast on his own, right? Like you see like the speedsters, like the Van Jeffersons, the Henry Ruggs. They make a difference on the field, but it's not because they're the ones necessarily catching the ball, right? So in fantasy football, we want the player that's going to catch the ball. So if you have a more shifty type player like a Justin Jefferson, he's probably going to do more, like produce more than a speedy guy like Van Jefferson or Henry Ruggs. Like we've seen it. So to your point out, it matters because speed does matter. And yes, it's 40 yards, but it's still, do they have that breakaway speed? Can they beat the defender? That matters, right? If a straight up go route, if they can beat the DB, get it just a 1 or 2 yards of separation, a good quarterback's going to get them the ball. So that matters. It opens up big plays in the NFL matter, right?
Yeah,
more than ever.
And I agree there. I just think it was just a point that like kind of was sticking with me that as I saw the speculation that more players might, and I don't want to belabor the point, but let's keep an eye on that this year and let's see if it actually does affect draft stock and the narrative around it. All right,
here's question, the thing, Al. Just really quick to close that point. I think it's going to be interesting to see if more and more players opt out of the combine altogether and just stick to their pro day, right? In the conditions that they can control. I think that's going to be really interesting this year, especially some of these top ranked guys. Like if Treylon Burks doesn't go to the combine, is that going to hurt his draft stock? I still think he's the number one, but maybe it slows things down a little bit. Maybe Garrett Wilson becomes a top ranked player on some boards. It's it's hard to tell if is it cause or an effect, but it's going to be interesting.
All right. I want to talk a little dynasty strategy with you, but we could save that for the end because I have a ton of questions about philosophy and strategy. But let's talk a little. We talked about rookie sleepers, so more or less, I asked you to come up with a list because you're deep into this stuff now. I start my process a couple weeks ago. We did a couple exercises with the RotoWire crew, but I always like your takes on these late round guys and guys that are players that are going to get drafted probably late day round 2 and later. So it could be day 3. It could be the last couple rounds. So when we talk about sleepers, some of the non-top 3 or 4 guys, we know Breece Hall, we know about Walker, we know Spiller. Those guys are going to be firmly above the spec, for now until things change in the top 3 or 5. So you talked about Jerome Ford. You had asked me. I had asked you about Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati. Yeah. So, talk to me like you're talking to my grandmother. She knows nothing about fantasy football. Give me the cliff note for dummies on Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati.
All right. So Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati. Let's get started. So Jerome Ford, I guess one of the reasons that I wanted to highlight this guy is because I've seen him. I do a lot of reading, right? Because as I'm trying to learn about these rookies, I go to a lot of different websites. I like to get a lot of different perspectives about these players. I've seen Jerome Ford as high as the number 4 running back, the number 3 running back on some boards. I've seen him as low as like the 10, 11, 12th running back on boards. And here's the thing. I'm somewhere in the middle.
What year is he? Is he a senior? Is he a junior?
Jerome Ford, he was at the Senior Bowl.
Okay, so he's
at the Senior Bowl.
Okay,
yeah, so he's a senior. He opted out of the game. I think there was a family reason why he opted out of the game. And here's the thing, right? So Jerome Ford, he is running back out of Cincinnati. He's 5'11", 215 pounds. He's 22 years old, so he's a little bit older. I
laugh when you say older at 22 years old.
Well, it's all relative, right? It's all relative. And so the thing is that he spent his first 2 years in college at Alabama, right? So he didn't get an opportunity to play because there's always these star-studded running backs in Alabama. So he transferred over to Cincinnati in 2020, but really it was in 2021 where he broke out. And the reason that I like Jerome Ford is, first of all, you look at just the pure counting stats, okay? The man had 215 rush attempts. He's a big dude. He can handle the ball. That's important, right? He didn't really have any major injuries of note, which is also notable.
Did you say his size already? Did you say what was he? 5'11"? What's his weight?
215 pounds.
215. And the key question, and I'm sure you're going to cover this, is how many receptions did he have in his best year? How many receptions?
There, Alan Seslowsky.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
Trust the process, baby. Trust the process.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right about that. You're right. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Jerome Ford, 215 rush attempts, 1,315 rush yards. Okay. So in terms of like, what's his job? He's a running back. Can he run the damn ball? Can he handle the carries? This is important. Okay. When they played their bowl game, he was seemingly the only guy who actually got anything done because Desmond Ridder did absolutely squat in their bowl game. Okay. So that matters. He had 20 total touchdowns on the season now. That's significant. I believe number one on the season was 23 with Tyler Allgeier, and there was a few guys at that level. So he ranked up there in terms of total touchdowns. In terms of the pass catching prowess, look, Jerome Ford is capable in the passing game. All right. So in his senior season, he had 21 receptions for 220 receiving yards. He had about a 5.8% reception share. Now, the threshold where we talk about running backs that are capable of catching the ball, can perform in the reception game versus these elite pass catchers, I like to see 8, 9, 10% of that target share. He was below that threshold. Okay. The reason I like Jerome Ford though is because he does profile as a type of running back that can step in a committee. Okay. Now, the reason I'm bringing Jerome Ford, I said, Shane, why are you talking about this guy? He was a late breakout. He was a senior. He didn't do much at the Senior Bowl. The reason is because I really do think that in today's NFL, more often than not, you're going to get into a situation where it's the first 1 and 2 down running back as well as the pass catching running back. So the question is Jerome Ford going to be in red zone situations? And I think he is, because that's really where he does his best work, is in the red zone. And you saw it with his 20 touchdowns, right? So he does excel in short yardage situations. He can be explosive. When he was in high school, he did log a 4.440, which is important, right? And then Al, you're saying, what about that? What about the 100-meter dash? Well, he actually ran a 10.61 second 100-meter dash in high school as well, right? So the guy's quick. The guy can be elusive in the goal line. The problem is he's average at best in the reception game. So,
this is what I want to talk about there, because the reception stuff. So it's funny. I see you guys talk a lot about the share percent, and I understand why that's important. Yeah. But if you're just talking about players that'll translate to the NFL, and this is it's not really an arbitrary number, but some guys at RotoWire did a little background research on this.
Is the number.
And 20. It was the number was 20. 20
okay.
Yeah, and again, whatever your number is, but 20 just means like I'm not worried about it. You know, I mean, if it was like 6 capable. Receptions, right, it would just be like, oh, all right. But 20, it's like, okay, they're totally capable. It's just opportunity. You know, I don't know if he had other receivers on his squad or like that, but it's like it checks a box for me. So so I like this pick a lot, and I like that you pointed out his prowess in the end zone, because everyone's like, "Oh, how hard is it to run in a 2-yard plunge?" It's hard.
It's hard.
There's players that are good at it, like someone like Melvin Gordon, right? I mean, a veteran. Mm-hmm. He just proved that over and over again, like with the exception of his rookie year, where I think he had 0 or 1 touchdowns. That once he got the opportunity on the goal line, he was just one of these guys that was just good at punching it in. We can go down the list.
I believe he had 0, didn't he, as a rookie?
Yeah, it's what I'm saying. It was 0-1, which is, again, it was totally weird. It was totally weird. So I like that pick of Jerome Ford in most, let's say, so where do you project that he'll go in the real NFL draft? Is he around 3 player, or is he around like 6?
He's probably going to be anywhere. He's a day 3 guy. So day 3, so round 1 is obviously day 1. Day 2 is rounds 2 and 3. And then day 3 is the rest 4, 5, of the rounds, 6, right? 4, 7, 5, 6, 7, right. Plus then all the other compensatory picks and all that garbage. So the thing is that he could go probably as high as the 4th round or as low as the 6th round, right? Okay. Talk about Jerome Jefferson. Where did he go last year? He's a guy that
round 6,
yeah. So he's a guy that I kind of think about in this mold.
And again, I'm not worried about I don't care if a running back's taken in round 5, as long as he makes the roster. He's going to start out as the 3rd running back on his on his team. And, maybe, I don't know if he is capable of playing in special teams. That'll get him active on game day. But for the most part, these are the type of players that in round 3 of our rookie mock drafts that I am going to collect. I don't, this is where you hit on Elijah Mitchell last year. This is where you hit on Khalil Herbert, because in a lot of drafts, those guys were going on in round 4 and 5. You got to reach up for these players. That's my dynasty rookie advice, because you're going to hopefully capture these 2 to 3 week windows, maybe longer, to get them. All right, let's talk about we'll close the book on Ford. I like that. Sure. The next player you sent me here is Wandel Robinson, the wide receiver out of Kentucky. Give me everything about him, because I want the audience to hear about what year is he, what's his measurables, and where do you project him go?
Okay, so Wandel Robertson, he's out of Kentucky. He's a younger player. He's only 21 years old, so he's definitely one of the younger players. And okay, so he's 5'10", 185 pounds. This is of a little bit of concern. So I basically highlighted to you 2 running backs that we'll talk about and 3 wide receivers. The 3 wide receivers, the reason that I want to talk about them today is because I want to get them on your radar. They don't have that threshold. Like, they're all under 200 pounds, right? They probably prospect to be more closer to like a slot type player, but they have the upside. They can potentially play on the outside. So Wandel Robinson, here's the thing. He had a young breakout age at 18.7. In 2019, he had a 37.3% college dominator rating. So when you look, what is college dominator rating? It's just a percentage of the team's reception touchdowns and receiving yards. So
I'm glad you defined that, because dominator rating is something you hear all over podcasts. And I honestly, like, I kind of know what it was, but I'm glad you defined it. So just say it again, so the listener who was drinking their coffee or just like dominator rating. Shane, what is dominator rating? Define it.
Okay, so it's the college dominator rating for the position, right? So for the wide receiver, it's a percentage of the team's reception touchdowns as well as total receiving yards. And so I think it's weighted 50-50 pretty much for that. Okay. So we did 37.3%. That's massive. Anytime you have like a 30+% college dominator rating, that's huge, right? So 37.3, that's massive. Okay.
What's an acceptable dominator rating for someone that you're just you're like, hey, this is fine?
Between 20 to 25% is acceptable, right? The tough thing about dominator rating is context matters, right? Like, another one of the players that we're going to talk about a little bit later is John Metchie. He only had a 22.6% college dominator rating. Well, guess what? He played for Alabama. So, you go into these situations. And so what I like about Wandel Robinson is that when he was in high school, he started as a running back, but he was a highly sought after player. The thing too about Wandel Robinson is he did start. He was drafted. He went to Nebraska and then he eventually transferred back to Kentucky. But in his 3rd year, so he was a junior. He wasn't a senior, so he's coming out early, which is important, right? In 13 games, he had 104 receptions, 1,334 reception yards, and he averaged 12.83 yards per reception. Again, he had and this is what we didn't talk about. He had a 39.3% target share. That is massive. That is absolutely massive. Almost a 40% target share in college at any level. That's massive. In the NFL, we look at guys like the alphas on their team with the 25% market share, right? So in college, this man had almost a 40% market share. That's massive. Okay. So that's one of the reasons that I like to highlight him.
That's basically like one of every 3 plays, and more than that, because that would be 33% went to Robinson. So pretty much, that's good. Right? What is his best trait? Like, where does he dominate on the field? Is he is he the short route guy? Is he the deep guy? Like, what's his superpower?
He's good at, like, if a team is playing zone coverage against this guy, like, he's going to be, I think, an excellent slot receiver. Like, that's where he's going to get profiled. And before you say that, I mean, people don't forget CeeDee Lamb started as a slot wide receiver in his rookie season, and he looked pretty damn good, right? He was still effective for your fantasy team. So Wandel Robinson, he's a player that's you want to take a shot on. And here's the thing, right? Because he started at running back, he has a pretty good knack for the game, right? The thing is that you look at in the NFL, who are these players that are playing running backs out of the backfield? It's these thicker guys like a Deebo Samuel type, right? So in the NFL, his 185-pound frame, he might play Z, right? He might play as flanker, running across formations and getting balls that way. But he's not going to be a pure running back, right? That's not going to be his role in the NFL. but he can be electric. I think his route running, it needs a little bit of work again because he wasn't playing it. But the fact that he really did break out and he's coming and he's an early declare, despite the fact that he started as a running back, I think that matters, right? So Wandel Robinson, he's a player that you're going to see in a lot of, I think in a lot of draft boards, going to be projected around the mid to late, probably round 2 of your dynasty rookie drafts. In the real NFL, same thing. All these guys are day 3 guys, so he's still projecting to go as a day 3 player. But
do you have an NFL team where that you think might be a good fit for him?
I mean,
almost if he's a slot receiver,
pretty
almost
much anywhere,
Al,
right? Honestly, yeah. And the thing is, I think Wandel Robinson, depending how he tested to combine, I think he's going to get round 3 draft capital. I think a team's going to see the athleticism. He's declaring early. There's a reason that he is declaring, right? A lot of the times these players, especially the smaller school guys, they'll go and what are scouts talking? What are their agents telling them, right? And if they think they're going to get decent capital, like why would you come out early if you're going to be a day 4, day 5, or day 3 guy, round 4, round 5 player? It doesn't make sense to me. So I get the feeling that Wandel Robinson, and he's probably he's a guy that could go as high as I think round 3. I don't see him going in round 2 unless a team just gets absolutely enamored with him. But he's at the end of the day, he's still a slot guy, right? His testing at the combine, this is a guy that needs to go and test, right?
Just that's what I was talking about there.
Yeah.
A day 4 player needs a test because if he's declaring for the draft, day 4, round 4 player it needs test because they can move up. But I was just talking about like some of the stars earlier, like when I said guys that won't test, like what reason does one of the top 2 receivers need to test? We beat that to death already. But yes, sure. I agree with you. A player like this can only move up from testing, not move down.
Yeah. So Wandel Robinson, I think he's a guy that I'm definitely going to be taking a shot on. He didn't go yesterday in our mock draft because we only did 1 round, but I have him projected in my rookie rankings. I got him right around 2-3 turn. He's going to be in discussion when you're drafting like the Jalen Tolbers, Christian Watson. So, the guys that really showed it out at the Senior Bowl. That's the conversation he's going to be in when you're drafting.
All right. Question for you here. What's the best comp for him or the most common?
Oh, I'm losing you. Oh,
hey, you still there, Shane?
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I think we froze for a second, but we're good.
Sorry about that.
We're good.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah, it might be my connection's a little loose, but that's fine. Anyway. So let's keep going with this. So do you have a comp for him?
Yeah. Okay. So when you look at his size, you look at his speed, the types of player that he really could I think at a high level, he could potentially be like a quarterback's best friend, like a Deontay Johnson type player. I don't think he's got the speed of are we always going to compare these smaller guys to Tyreek Hill? Like he's not a Tyreek Hill,
right?
He's not going to be as quick as them. I think high end NFL, if he comes out to be like a Hunter Renfrow, maybe a Tyler Lockett, if he's in the right situation with a quarterback to trust him, like that's his high end potential.
I like that.
Low end, I don't know, probably like a Russell Gage type. Comparably, Russell Gage is 6 foot, 186 pounds, right? Like that's the type of player that he's going to be. So if he's going to a situation where it's more of like the pocket passers, like like Derek Carr loves his Hunter Renfrow. Matt Ryan loves his Russell Gage, like that type of quarterback. That's where this guy can go and get 7-8 receptions a year. If he's going to go 7-8 receptions a game, 7-8 receptions a year would be unacceptable.
I understood what you meant. What you meant.
And then you're hoping that he can get like 5, 6, 7 touchdowns on the season, right? He's going to be a wide receiver 3 type on your team that you're going to be comfortable starting. Now, the thing is with these types of players, as a rookie, he may not jump off the page, right? Like we have to set expectations realistically here, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown was a later round player.
He went in round 4 in the real NFL draft.
He went, to start of round 4, but yeah,
he was still it's still round 4, but he was going in rookie drafts, like he was one of the first 5 picks in round 2 in our dynasty drafts.
Yeah, but are you talking about Superflex or non-Superflex?
Yeah, I always talk Superflex on here, but I understand.
Yeah, right. For me, he was going later round 2.
Yeah,
right?
He might have gone 210 in a bunch of drafts. You're right.
Yeah, that Kadarius Toney was the guy where we got to take the draft capital on Kadarius Toney as a prospect. Like Al, you and I did a bunch of mocks, right? I pretty much was hammering Amon-Ra St. Brown in the second round whenever I could in our mocks. But after the draft capital, you have to reevaluate that. Like, what does the NFL see that we don't see? And in my opinion, the NFL got it wrong with this guy, right? Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a star, and he's going to be a star. Now, listen, when everybody's healthy, TJ Hawkinson's back, DeAndre Swift is back, is he going to have that same elite target share? I don't know. Time will tell, right? But he's the type of player you want to give the benefit of the doubt to. Now, Wandel Robinson, if he goes into an opportunity where he could be a target hog, maybe he's going to move up your draft or move up.
Well, I want to make a comment about dynasty philosophy here, because this is exactly kind of ties back into what I was talking about. Like, so in round, 2, 3, I'm just going to soak up these running backs over players like Wandel Robinson, because like you just said, you just identified the key thing. This guy is probably going to be a wide receiver 3 type, which, by the way, I love having plug and play wide receiver 3s. There's nothing against that specific
you need
tagging. Right.
Yeah.
But you said in year 1, he's unlikely to produce. So that's there's many roads to a championship, but I'm going to try to accumulate those running backs after, the top 5 wide receivers are off the board, because those guys will produce in year 1. So dynasty managers are likely going to be a little goosey if their wide receiver doesn't show you anything in year 1, or they have a typical rookie wide receiver with late draft capital season, and that's when you'll be able to get them a little bit, let's say, more efficiently. You'll be able to trade away players that have, maybe a little older players. So that I try to collect these this is why I'm glad you're mentioning them, because they have upside for a good career. But in the rookie drafts themselves, I get a little impatient of those type of guys. And if you have a 25-man roster, you may not even have room to hold a player like that. Now, if you play in a lot of these deep dynasty leagues like we do, 30, 35, no problem. Put them on your taxi squad, all right? I mean, but I just, when you talk about dynasty philosophy and rookies you should draft, I'm glad you mentioned him, but I'm going to let somebody else take a player like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to try to get them this year. So I'm just trying to think of some players that didn't show out. Oh, you know what? Amari Rogers on Green Bay would be example. Yeah. He was going in mid-round 2 last year. Right. Yep. That's where I was
drafting him ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right.
Because he's going to the Packers.
Right. Now this year, if I was to offer someone, let's say I had the last pick in round 2 or like 3.1, someone that has Amari Rogers is probably like, here you go.
All. Yeah.
Right. So that, again, this doesn't apply to every situation, but just as a philosophy question, if he is going where you said he's going to go in that late round 2, I'll probably pass for the running backs. That's my philosophy. And because I'll be able to get this guy next year if I have a feeling with his upside, like you just described. All right,
well, here's just on that, Al. So this is relevant. Okay. One of the questions I keep being asked a lot, and I'm sure the same as with you, is at what point, because this 2023 class, man, it's going to be the greatest class in history. 2023, watch out, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm being facetious, right, Al? So the question is like, at what point am I comfortable trading my 2022 picks to get a 2023 pick? And the answer for me is, okay, in round 1, and this matters, right? Because context matters. I think you'd agree, and the general consensus out there is that this quarterback class is not as strong, right? Look, Malik Willis, I love Malik Willis. I love his upside, but in any other year, he'd be like the 5th, 6th quarterback off the board, right? So at what point am I comfortable trading my rookie picks? Probably right around that 1.7, 1.8. If I can get, say, a 2023 1 and then maybe a later round 1 pick or even like a round 2 pick this year, that's something that I'm going to consider, okay? That's for the early round. And there's some nuance to this, all right? So then the question is, if I'm in round 2, am I willing to just straight up trade one of my round 2 picks for, say, a 2023 round 2 pick and maybe a 2023 4th or 5th or something like that? Here's the thing. I am more likely going to make the pick this year, banking on the fact that a round 2 pick this year, I mean, every year most classes are top heavy, right? Yes, there's going to be depth, but round 2 in your rookie drafts, round 3, you're always taking shots, right? So would I rather defer that lottery ticket to next year and pray that that's going to be like that lottery ticket's going to pay off? Or would I rather scratch it today, knowing that at least there's an opportunity for this player to go and do something in the NFL? Maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown was that lottery ticket last year. You said, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to make the pick because there's a better chance that if this guy pays off, he's going to be worth more than a round 2 pick this year than a round 2 pick next year, right? So in round 1, if you can get say, like I said, if you trade away your 1.7, you get a 2023 round 1, and then maybe like a third or a second round pick along with that. I'm going to do that right away. But if I'm in my round 2 and I'm in the dart throw position of this draft, I'm going to throw that dart this year. I'm banking on the fact that this player is going to do something in the NFL, because that's how you win in Dynasty, Al, right? Like, you need star players, but you also need to win on the margins. And what that means is that you have a player that you drafted in round 1 and round 2, your rookie drafts, that you can now trade for a round 1 pick next year, right? So that matters to me. So Wandel Robinson is the guy that I'm probably going to scratch that lottery ticket on this year versus trading that pick away. That's just me. That's my philosophy. But
it's fun. It's funny. It's funny you say that. Like, I hear that a lot. Like, hey, if I get a round 2 or round 3 player and they hit, I'm going to try to trade them for a first round pick for another lottery ticket. And and there's definitely a lot of merit to that, but it's the perpetual rebuilders, the ones that are constantly trying to trade up, and they're not just enjoying, the fruits, of their spoils. They're unless you're getting like the mother load for Elijah Mitchell, it's like you have a starting running back. Why the hell are you trading him? So that's a good point. Let me finish the point real quick. Okay. Is that there's perpetual rebuilders in every league, and they are basically dead money walking. I mean, yesterday I had a guy in a league, in a pretty sharp league, and he was just saying that he was like, "Oh, I'm rebuilding, right?" And he's the Superflex team that has Tom Brady, so I understand quarterbacks are hard to come by. But rebuilding to me is like selling off your veterans to get some picks. The guy traded me Najee Harris off his team, and and it wasn't even like for the mother load. Like, I gave him 2 firsts and a second, so I paid probably market, but not like, I mean, any player would do that, right? I gave him 2 firsts and a second for Najee Harris. Like, that's not a rebuild. And then, so I'm just saying, like, always trying to, when you have a bird in hand, don't always try to trade up, just enjoy it. But that's, again, the dynasty philosophy question. What were you going to add to that?
Well, I think to that point, it's if you scratch that ticket this year, right? Because all these guys, there's a reason they're not going in round 1 of these drafts. Okay. If you scratch that ticket, you can either sell the player at a profit, right? The easiest comparison is stocks. Sell that player at a profit, or hold on to that damn player. Let him play on your team. Let him contribute to your team. And because last I checked out, we're here to win championships, right? Like, that's why you play Dynasty. And I definitely get lost in that a little bit because I get so enamored by the rookies. But if that player does hit, like Amari hits, don't trade him away unless you get fair compensation for that player, right? Because he's young. He's the type of player that you want in your dynasty leagues. And you can either keep him or you can trade him. So that's why I'm more inclined in these later round picks to just take the swing, man. Like, why defer it to next year? Because a round 3 pick in 23 is going to be just as much of a dart throw as a round 3 pick this year. You might as well go for it this year and hope he accrues value. And if that player doesn't, you can either cut them or let them marinate in your taxi squad another year, or trade them off somewhere. Like,
I think my philosophy was don't trade the pick away. And we might be talking about 2 different things, it was that take the shot on the running backs, the round 4, round 5, round 6 running backs over the day 3 wide receivers. There's good, unless you have, I mean, listen, if you have a strong lean on one of these guys, if you knew Gabriel Davis, round 4 wide receiver, was going to break out, then sure, take that. You're going to hit sometimes. I just meant as a general philosophy question. Let's continue on. Let's continue on with our rookie sleepers. I'm here with Shane Seeley of the Flex Network. I'm Alan Seslowsky, RotoWire. By the way, the RotoWire Dynasty Superflex rankings have just been refreshed. They've just been updated. You can see them right now for free for 10 days. Go to rotowire.com/try. Just put in your email. There's no credit card. You can see all of RotoWire's premium content for 10 days free. Baseball draft kits up there if you like fantasy baseball. If you love dynasty football, there's a ton of dynasty content. So rotowire.com/try. Check out everything for free for 10 days. All right, Shane, rookie sleepers, guys that I can get in my rookie draft. I'm going to jump the field on. You like Skye Moore, the wide receiver out of Western Michigan. Break him down a little bit for me. Why should we draft him in our rookie drafts this year?
Skye Moore he's another fun guy. He's out of Western Michigan. Look, he's going to be, all 3 of these guys I'm talking about again are probably, they're smaller bodied guys. So they're likely going to be profiled at least to start as a slot wide receiver. So keep that in mind for context. Okay. But Skye Moore, again, another young player who's only 21 years old. He's at a 21.4 to be exact. He's out of Western Michigan. He's 5'9", 195 pounds, but got the BMI, baby. You know I like that BMI. He's thick. He's 21.8 BMI, which is higher. Like by comparison, Wandel Robinson was a 26. So Wan'dale's a little bit more svelte, thin, whereas Skye Moore is a little bit thicker, which I generally like. And also at 195 pounds, like I'm so much more comfortable with my 195-pound wide receivers than 185 pounds. I mean, really my minimum threshold for these players where they're not just going to get destroyed in the NFL is like 180 pounds, but I like them closer to 200 pounds. So 195 pounds, I like that for him. Whew, get ready for this, Al. Okay. He had a 44.8% college dominator rating, which I just love. Like that just makes me tingle inside. He's got a college target share of 39.5 and his yards per reception was 13.6. So overall, he is respectable from that standpoint too, right? Now, what does he actually do at Western Michigan? And again, sorry, he is a junior coming out, so he just finished his third year of college. In 12 games, he had 94 receptions, 1,283 receiving yards, with again, like I said, the target share of 36.68%, and then a catch rate of 70%, and he had 10 overall touchdowns. So the man could get it done pretty much anywhere you put it. The thing that I like about is that when he was playing in high school, he actually started as a quarterback and a defensive back. So he wasn't a wide receiver in high school or in high school. And that matters, right? Because first of all, you look at these, like, I don't know, like it's probably like Julian Edelman, for example, right? It's probably a cliche to think of it, but these players, when they played quarterback at any level, right, they just seem to have a different understanding of the game. So he played quarterback. He understands the nuance of not just his position, but the team as a whole, right, on offense. But then he also played defensive back. So he understands wide receiver tendencies. He understands what his defenders are going to be doing. So to me, that's important. And then he translated. The reason he moved to wide receiver is because he was a damn good wide receiver. He's shifty, he's quick at changing direction, and he's super reliable. In college, the QB rating when quarterbacks were targeting him was 116.2 in his college career. That's high, right? Which means this is a player that can be relied on. And so for Wandel Robinson, we had some of those smaller bodied guys. The high-end comps for a player like Skye Moore in terms of his body type is players like CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, maybe like a Rashad Bateman, a Jerry Jeudy type. So this is the type of player that they've got the speed, they've got the size, they've got the shiftiness that they can go and actually make an impact right away. This is the type of player that the NFL is starting to fall in love with. Why? Well, guess what? These are the types of wide receivers that are winning in 2022. So they're shifty, they're quick. They're not necessarily those big alpha Mike Evans type players, right? But they're not also those small shifty guys that are always freaking hurt and that are never playing for your team. So that's why I like Skye Moore. Skye Moore is popular. I think he's going to be moving up draft boards. The thing that I say, listen, fantasy gamers, just take some pause on him, right? Let the process play out because again, he is currently being projected as a day 3 pick. So, there's always that upside. But there's always that risk that he's not going to get on the field right away because we love him, but does the NFL love him? So that's Skye Moore. He's a guy that I've got him ahead of Wandel Robinson for the reasons that I outlined. If I'm going to take a shot, I'm going to take a shot on the bigger guy, the guy that I've seen more reliable comps for in the NFL consistently year in, year out. So Skye Moore.
Guy that caught my eye a little bit here, and I want you to break him down. I put him on the cover of our YouTube video. It's Tyler Allgeier, the running back out of BYU. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to give me the cliff notes as we got 2 players to cover in about 8 minutes. So break them down, baby. You're doing a good job. I'm enjoying this. I'm sure the listeners are as well. Tyler Allgeier is a player that I, just based on profile, who I think I'm going to be drafting in a lot of my rookie dynasty drafts.
Yeah, you've got to type, Al. You've got to type. His pro comparison is a guy like James Conner. Now, he's not as big as James Conner. Tyler Allgeier, like I said, running back at a BYU. He's 21 years old. He'll be 22 when the season starts next year. He is 5'11" and 220 pounds. Ooh. He lit the NCAA on fire last year. Let me just pull up his stats here. Okay, so on 276 rush attempts, he had 1,601 yards, which was 3rd in the NCAA total, and he was tied for 1st with 23 total touchdowns. We talk about the receptions, okay? He had 28 receptions for 199 yards, and guess what, Al? He had a 10% target share, which means they were actually going for him with the ball. Now, the thing is, I will add some context to that. It was typically in shorter routes. He could do over the shoulder catches, but he wasn't going down the field. He wasn't lining up as wide receiver as much as say like a Kyron Williams might have, but he's still a player that he profiles. He's got the side, he's got the speed. He could profile as a 3-down back in the NFL. And you talk about a dart throw. There's a reason that people are talking about Tyler Allgeier. And look, after like I like John Metchie, he's a guy that I'm taking a shot on. But after the Kyron Williams, David Bells, Trey McBrides, like those type of like that class of player, you're going to be starting taking shots on guys like Tyler Allgeier in the middle of round 2 of rookie drafts this year. He's a player that I get excited about. I'm probably going to have a lot of Tyler Allgeier. If I've got to 2-4, 2-5, it's going to be a decision between, do I want to go like a David Bell, which the word is a fantasy community likes him better than the NFL community does. Do you want to take Trey McBride, which, you know, in your tight end premium leagues, it's always nice to have an elite tight end, but immediate day one production, I think Tyler Allgeier can give you that.
Yeah, I'm seeing, by the way, you mentioned Trey McBride, the tight end.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see him show up in round 1 of some mocks now. So not of the real NFL draft. So, you know, a discussion for another day.
Yeah,
a discussion for another day. It happens all the time in the NFL. The guy who the tight end teams fall in love with the tight end. That could be the TJ Hawkinson type. And listen, teams make non-optimal picks all the time. It was somebody that I thought would be a value in like the middle or late second round of the real NFL draft is now actually showing up in these mocks. It doesn't mean anything other than it's just maybe a few combine bros or Senior Bowl bros that they're wanting to flex him in there.
Yeah.
All right.
One last thing, just real quick, Al, with Tyler Allgeier. One of the reasons I think he's going to be able to withstand the NFL and just the brutal, hit after hit, getting hit by a truck on every play, is he did play as a linebacker. He started as a linebacker before he transferred to running back, right? So that's why you don't have that early production from him. But look, I think he's standing out. He's a player that I'm going to be targeting, and I'm excited about him. So I just wanted to end that.
Yeah, I like that tidbit about him being a linebacker and basically just having a coat of armor. I mean, this is feelings aside, it's like this is exactly what the NFL this is the type of player the NFL team should draft. A player where you're likely only going to get your one contract out of him, your 4 years, right? And you put him in there and you let him get some hard-earned yards for you and just give maybe your starter. He's probably not going to be a 1A, but if he goes to a team where he could creep his way up the depth chart, this is exactly what we've been talking about all podcast long. All right, John Michie, a wide receiver. He's Alabama, right?
John Metchie. Yeah,
John Metchie. Okay, see, good. I'm glad you're educated. So, why is he a sleeper? Where is he? Break him down a little bit. Why is he not in amongst the elites? Was his production a little because the typical Alabama receiver has to cede to some of those alpha guys?
The thing about John Metchie is he's an out of sight, out of mind type player right now. The reason for that is because he did tear his ACL around the end of the college season. So you saw that Alabama, they lost in the national championship. They didn't have any other wide receivers. Jamison Williams got hurt in that game as well. And they were the two alphas, right? Before he got hurt.
So one second, what kind of injury was it?
It was an ACL injury.
So he had an injury in the same game as
No. I know Jamison Williams tore his ACL in the national championship game.
Yeah, that I saw.
It was around November of last year.
Okay, so it was late in the season. So basically, anyone who drafts him is he's not going to have training camp.
No, and this is a risk. This is why I'm bringing this player up. It's not very often that we bring up these early declare Alabama wide receivers as sleepers, right? But people aren't talking enough about this guy. Jamison Williams, before his injury, he was projected to be the number 1 wide receiver off the board, and I would have been cool with that, right? Like I would have had it would have been an absolute conversation between him and Treylon Burks, in my opinion, as the number 1 wide receivers because of the speed, because of the elusiveness. John Metchie, before he got hurt, was actually leading Alabama in receptions with 96 receptions for 1,042 yards. Again, these sort of things matter. And he did have 8 receiving touchdowns on the game. So he played on the season, he did play 13 games. So it was around the end of the season. But the thing, I just want to remind people that John Metchie is here. He's going in like late round 2, round 3, where again, this guy would be in the conversation as a round 1 wide receiver. I say there's really a big 3 wide receivers, maybe big 4 if you throw Jamison Williams in there. He would be in that conversation. And I think one of the knocks with the draft class this year is that there just isn't that sizzle at the top as much as maybe previous years. Like there's no Jamar Chases in this class, right? But if John Metchie wasn't hurt, if Jamison Williams wasn't hurt, it would be a big five, and we would be a lot more comfortable because you could pretty much knock out 8-9 players comfortably, skill position players, before you even start discussing some of these quarterbacks in your Superflex drafts. How is that not a good draft year? Classes to me that matters, right?
Yeah, one of the things that I keep pushing back on, and again, you obviously you're studied this class. I'm getting up to speed now. This is why I have you on, Shane, because I mean you're part of my study. You're one of the sharpest rookie analysts I know, and again, this is why we have you here. Give it to the RotoWire listeners. But when anyone starts with the 22 class sucks thing, I just said it's just such hogwash. It's like three or four of these guys are going to be superstars. We don't even know who it is yet. And even of the quarterbacks, one of them is going to be just locked and loaded top 12 quarterback or top 15 quarterback, upside, or be drafted next year. So when you just say, oh, the quarterback class sucks and blanket, it's like, okay, fine. Maybe there's not like a clear prospect, but it's there. One of them is going to break out, and we'll save it for another day because as we're running out of time. But I heard you guys talk about Malik Willis as like your fourth quarterback on your board. I see, to me, and I know you've studied this a little bit more, but I see someone like that, so a running quarterback with upside who's going to likely go in the first round of the NFL draft. And I'm like, he's the 1-1 in Superflex, or at least the 1-2 if there's a running back you like. So I just think that's just from just a profile perspective. Yeah. When you talk about fantasy, that's the QB1 for me. Obviously, if somebody else goes in the top 5 of the NFL draft, we could have that discussion if they're going to get opportunity. But and I'll change my opinions as we move forward.
I'll give you real quick where I have Malik Willis. So Malik Willis is my number 1 quarterback just because of the upside.
Oh, good. I thought I heard you guys say he was the 4th quarterback in your podcast.
No, probably the 4th quarterback coming off draft boards, which I think after the Senior Bowl, that's now going to change, right? Like what I'd like to do is I don't know if I'm allowed to comp another site, but there's another site that I go to that has an indexed NFL draft.
You could say whatever.
Playerprofiler.com. Playerprofiler.com.
We love Player Profiler here. We have Cody on all the time. We're having Josh Larkey on in 2 weeks. He's coming on the podcast. Yeah.
Okay. So smarter people than me are out there. They're grinding these NFL mock indexes, and I think that Malik Willis is going to move up the board. But Kenny Pickett is the first quarterback that's being mocked to, I believe it's Washington at the 11th overall pick. Like that's where they're expecting.
Oh, I thought maybe Carolina would take a quarterback at 9. I thought, but
they could. I mean, but I think that there's a lot of discussions that Carolina's going to go out and get like a Jimmy Garoppolo, or they're going to get one of these free
veteran.
They're going to get a veteran guy. They believe that they're in a win now type situation. Honestly, Al, I don't think any of these quarterbacks are going to go to win now teams. Like none of them are that talent. But I have Malik Willis at 5 on my board. So just real quick, I'm going to go. This is just my very.
By the way, I don't care if they go to winning team. I would love if a quarterback went to the Detroit Lions and just racked up fantasy points. I mean, we're talking about fantasy here.
That's all. Well, the thing is that there's also, the Jacksonville Jaguars that can ruin generational prospects.
Yeah, but that was. I mean, everyone. I think the consensus believes that was coaching and environment. Like I think that the consensus and sharp analysis would say that the Lions is a great environment. Everyone loves Dan Campbell. They love the new hire for an offensive coordinator, and
they've changed that culture, man. They've done a great job.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So again, I don't care about and I've heard other sharp fantasy analysts like yourself talk about that, like need to be on a winning team, but I'm if the Lions get Willis somehow.
Okay, let me change that. Let me change that then. Okay. They don't need to go to a winning team. They need to go to a non-dysfunctional team.
Oh,
is that better?
You know what? And those are two different things.
They are, absolutely.
And I'm glad we made that distinction because, right, yeah, I mean, we've all worked in poisonous work environments before. We don't maximize our upside, our potential.
No, so it's toxic, man.
Yeah, just so I'll give you the last word here. Finish out what you were going to say, and then we'll wrap it up.
I just want to give the people a little bit of taste. So this is my top 6 players in Superflex drafts so far, pre-combine, all this stuff. Okay, I got 101, Breece Hall. Then I'm going Treylon Burks, Isaiah Spiller, running back at Texas A&M, Garrett Wilson, Malik Willis, Matt Corral. That's my top 6. So there's only 2 quarterbacks in there, and they finish out the top 6. So that's the type of quarterback class that it is this year, in my humble opinion. The NFL is hungry for quarterbacks. I just think that when you've got these, There's no such thing as a perfect prospect, but you've got these high-end elite, likely can't miss prospects that are going to make immediate year one impact on your NFL dynasty teams. I'm going to target those players ahead of these quarterbacks because it's going to take some time for to develop a quarterback. And again, the easiest time to get a quarterback is in a rookie draft. I'm still going to go for those high-end skill position players. That's just the kind of year that it is.
Shane Seeley of the Flex Network. All your links will be in the video description below. I want everybody who's listening to this podcast, if you loved what Shane said, and how the hell could you not, go listen to his podcast. He does a podcast every week on the Flex Network. You can follow him on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. I want you to do that as well. Amazing analysis over there. And again, subscribe to his podcast. I'll put all the links in the audio. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast, it'll be in there. And it's certainly worth a listen every week. There's no one more passionate about fantasy football and dynasty fantasy football than Shane Seeley and the Flex Network. Go follow him over there. Shane, you did it again. You blew up the RotoWire Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast. We're obviously going to have you back a bunch of times over the offseason to give us your updates. And like I said, everybody, this podcast is brought to you by WynnBET. We thank them. And to go see all of the RotoWire Dynasty Superflex rankings and all of our premium content for free, go to rotowire.com/try. Shane, brother, I'll see you next time.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks.